Recording here live at HMPS, the Healthcare Marketing Physician Strategy Summit in wonderful Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Right? Here in the expo hall, so don't mind the background noise. It's kind of a lot of hubbub around here, and I'm here with my good friend, really long-term friend, Jeremy Harrison. Jeremy, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Share a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am from Western Washington. In Tacoma, Washington, I work at MultiCare Health System, and I've been there for 12 years, and I manage our websites, our marketing teams, the whole 9 yards.
You do a lot there. You do a lot, and I've seen your career grow over the years, and I think it's amazing.
I was a pretty cub web guy when we first met.
Yeah, but I mean, that's so many years ago. But I mean, you've been coming to this conference for years now, right? The Healthcare Marketing Physician Strategy Summit, mouthful, HMPS, it's like to call it. It's a great conference, don't you think?
I've really enjoyed HMPS, and I value it because the quality of the speakers is really high. I think HMPS does a really good job of having super germane conversations happening. It's stuff that's going on right now in our industry, and so it's super valuable every session.
Well, you know a little bit about the secret sauce on how that's made, right? Because you've actually been part of it. So let's share a little bit with people like listening in, right? I, as a co-chair and with other co-chairs, we work with the conference organizer to look at the sessions, and this year we decided we were going to pull together a subcommittee of people like yourself that actually are living, breathing, doing this job to provide advice and counsel around the types of programming, the types of content we should have, right?
Yeah, it was really fun to be part of that group and to get a preview of what was coming. But just the process too of sorting through the proposals to make sure that we didn't have too many of one thing that was going to happen in the digital track, and that was the sort of advisory committee that I was on.
Yeah.
And to make sure that the topics that were presented, I think, were relevant for healthcare leaders of today.
And there were some sessions that were submitted that we actually gave good feedback to, and we went back to the submitters and said, well, we would like to do this, but we want to hear more about this. So it's like it was this whole interactive, dynamic way in which we kind of identified the sessions that were being presented here today.
Yeah.
And we tried to do it very relevant. I mean, I think you could get submissions a year in advance for these conferences. We were talking about this like late November, December to try to keep it as relevant as possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of them were kind of a hot landing, but that's exciting too because the pace of what's going on in our industry is moving pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to talk about an 18-month-old issue, that might not be relevant.
Right. No, like things like AI, which changed so rapidly, right?
Yeah.
Because then the people that were responsible for creating that content, we wanted to make sure that they were keeping it current too. Yeah. That's one thing I kind of looked at. Now, you also presented here, right?
I did.
Share a little bit about that.
I moderated a panel and talking about the relationship between IT and marketing, which is a really important relationship. It's in any healthcare organization. It's one that I think is sometimes fraught with misaligned goals and priorities, but we had great panelists, and it was a really interesting conversation that I think moved it forward for a lot of people, because that was about, kind of focused on finding common ground, speaking the same language, and in some ways, adapting to a more IT mindset so that you weren't the outsider,
Yeah, I think that was the thing that I sat in, and it was a great session. Hearing about how do you bridge the gap with the IT department? How do you, from a digital marketing perspective, make them your best friends, right? And because you need to partner with them, and I think this kind of reflects sort of the modern day world, right? You and I, know how I feel about this, right? Digital is not restricted to just one department.
It's not.
It's across the enterprise. And if we don't know how to speak with the people that really technically are tasked with digital, that's IT, I mean, that's a big miss here. So share some other things that came out of your session.
Well, I think what's most important one of the most important things that came out of this session was thinking about initiatives and not about owners, quote unquote owners of things.
Yeah.
You know, an EMR has traditionally been owned by IT maybe, but there's so much of it that's patient facing, that's part of the patient journey. And having a sort of inside out perspective of ownership and who does what doesn't benefit the patients.
Yeah.
And so we need to have more of an outside in. Like, they don't care. The patient doesn't care that marketing does part of the journey and then IT does another part of the journey. If it feels disjointed, it just feels disjointed.
Right.
Like, and it could be either party that's disjointing.
Right.
Disjoinery.
Yeah, so true. It's funny. One of the things I want you to share with people is you shared a secret tip at the very end about how you were able to build this relationship better. Do you mind sharing that with people?
I don't. I came to a point in my career where I was thinking of like, what new technology do I need to learn to advance? What do I need to do in terms skill-wise? And what I came upon was actually leadership. And I was being put in a position where I needed to be the best leader I could be for the organization in the column I was in the area I was in. So I actually went to our chief information officer and asked him if he could mentor me in leadership.
So smart.
And because he's a dynamic leader, his name is Brad Busick. He's an amazing guy. He actually came from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I have so much respect for him. And he's a really dynamic leader. And having that connection, just a personal connection, made it easier then to talk about some of the other things we need to talk about.
Right.
And it wasn't always like me asking for stuff. It was him like, hey, what are you doing about this? Because I'm kind of concerned about it. And so it was great.
You know, this theme of like marketing, in your case digital marketing, but marketing in general, kind of crossing the aisle or the silo, right? Busting down the silos was kind of resonant through other sessions that I saw here today, right? Where you were part of that CMO conversation earlier?
Yes.
Yeah, right? And we attended that, and it was the whole thing about like how the CMO role is changing. And there was like others about CMOs partnering with CFO and all that. I think this kind of reflects our current state where we have to be in. We can no longer continue down this path of silos, right?
No, totally. I feel like our organization, like the C-suite, has been like, if the Venn diagram was like almost individual circles before, and now they're overlapping so much more. And, innovation comes from a lot of different places, but it doesn't just land on one vertical.
Right.
I think it's really important in a dynamic healthcare leadership organization to be, not feeling ownership of like only digital marketing innovation can come from my vertical.
Right.
I don't want to listen to the EMR people coming at me with the CRM.
Right.
Or something else, because that's our domain. Well, like, we're working together here. We're all here in service of our patients and delivering care. Mm-hmm. And so that's an ego-free zone is the best place.
I love that, an ego-free zone. That's so good, right? I mean, that really is what it is, because as you said, right, the patient doesn't care.
Yeah. Or
Or if you're dealing with employees don't care. Or if your stakeholder is, your community, the community doesn't care. Today, they all see us as one entity.
Yeah.
It's about time we start working together as one entity, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I think that's really great. I mean, that's really good.
And I felt that in other sessions during HMPS this year. One that I really enjoyed was an IT person talking about messaging through CRM to consumers. And her perspective of, she can make a thing happen technologically, but it also takes the clinical leadership to determine what the right messages are to the patient. It takes the marketing team in terms of brand and look and feel and voice. And that just felt so much more collaborative. And so that was a really interesting conversation. And I got a lot from that. So I have things to take back.
Well, and that's kind of the resonant theme of this conference this year. So I think it's really great. Okay, Jeremy, I'm going to ask you something that might be a little bit out of your comfort zone here. But I have this little tiny crystal ball right here.
Ooh, very nice.
Okay.
It's really there.
It's there. There's a crystal ball here. Yeah. So what I'd like for you to do is peer into the crystal ball.
Yeah.
Next year. What are we going to be talking about? What do you think are going to be some of the themes that we're going to be tackling and dealing with? What are some of the success stories that we're going to be sharing?
All right. I'm going big because I think next year we're going to be talking about huge advancements in privacy, like GDPR, CCPA.
Yeah.
Becoming more of a national effort. I think that we're going the emphasis on patient privacy, especially post-Dobbs. We're following Europe's lead on a lot of things in terms of patient privacy, and I think that American citizens are going to want more.
Yeah.
And that could be really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, I think so too. And I'm gonna add to that and say, it's not going to come from statewide regulations. It's not going to come from federal regulations. I think it's going to become us as entities advancing that. We're going to be opting to advance privacy.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait for HHS to issue new guidance.
No, we should be ahead of that.
Yeah.
And and a lot of emerging technology is ahead of the legislation.
Yeah.
I think AI in terms of self-regulation right now is ahead of legislation and oversight from the government.
I love that. Yeah. Well, Jeremy, always a pleasure to talk to you. I always love seeing your face, and just hanging out with you. Known you for years, and it's so great to have opportunities like this to connect. So thanks again, man.
Thank you, Chris. That was great.